I'm choosing to stay anonymous for this because even now, years later, it still shakes me up. And honestly, if anyone involved somewhere and recognized me, I don't want them knowing I'm talking about it. It's not something I ever wanted to revisit, but lately it's been on my mind again, especially after what happened last week. Back in 2019, I was 22, broke, and basically drifting. I had dropped out of school, lost my part-time job at a hardware store, and had just gone through a breakup that left me sleeping on a friend's couch. I felt like dead weight, like everyone was quietly tired of dealing with me. And realistically, they probably were. One night while scrolling through Facebook Marketplace for cheap room rentals, I found this post by a guy named Miles. He was offering a room for $200 a month. Which, if you've ever struggled financially, you know how insane that sounds. The pictures showed a surprisingly clean house. Nothing fancy, but way better than couch surfing. The post said he worked nights, so he barely used the place, and he wanted someone trustworthy to occupy the space while he was gone. His words, not mine. At the time, that didn't register as weird. I just saw $200 and ignored every red flag that should have slapped me across the face. I messaged him, and he responded immediately. He seemed polite, normal, even friendly. We talked for maybe 10 minutes before he asked if I wanted to come see the place. I didn't tell my parents or friends. I just went. Like I said, my life was a mess, and I didn't care enough about myself to think twice. The house was in a normal neighborhood. A little old, but nothing unusual. Miles opened the door when I knocked, and I was surprised, I guess. He was younger than I expected. Maybe mid-30s, thin, pale, but dressed nice. The kind of guy who blends into any grocery store crowd. There was this weird moment though, when he opened the door, he didn't shake my hand. He just looked at me, like he was studying me. Almost like he was checking off a mental checklist. Then he smiled and let me in. The house was spotless. Too spotless. Not a speck of dust, not a dish in the sink, everything lined up almost perfectly. But again, I ignored it. He showed me the guest room. It was basic but clean. Then he pointed out the bathroom across the hall and said very casually, "Those are the only 2 rooms you need access to. Everything else is personal." I thought he just meant privacy. Everyone wants privacy. So I didn't question it. I moved in 2 days later. The first week was uneventful. He worked nights, just like he said, and I barely saw him. I would be asleep when he got home. The house was always quiet. Too quiet actually. You know how every house has its own sounds? Pipes, floors, wind against the windows. This house felt soundproof. Like the air was thick or something. I remember thinking that was a good thing at the time. The first weird thing happened maybe 10 days in. I woke up around 3 a.m. to the sound of footsteps. Not faint, not subtle, actual footsteps in the hallway. Slow. Heavy. But Miles was supposed to be at work. I froze, listening. The footsteps stopped right outside my bedroom door. I didn't move. I didn't even breathe. After a long minute, they walked away and went downstairs. I tried to convince myself Miles came home early, but something about those footsteps, they didn't sound normal. They sounded almost dragging. In the morning, Miles acted totally normal, drinking coffee, scrolling on his phone. So I didn't bring it up. I wish I had. A few days later, I was in the bathroom brushing my teeth when I heard a soft tapping on the wall behind the mirror. Not random tapping, 3 slow taps, then silence. Then, 3 more. I remember staring at the mirror and feeling like someone else was staring back from the other side of it. But when I mentioned it to Miles, he just laughed and said, "Old houses make weird noises." Except the house didn't make weird noises. Ever. That silence had been the one thing I found comforting. After about a month, I noticed something else. Every time I left my room, even for a few minutes, things would be slightly moved. My bag shifted. My jacket in a different spot. My charging cable unplugged. One night, I placed my wallet in a very specific position, half hanging off the desk, to test myself. When I woke up, it was centered perfectly in the middle of the desk. Miles wasn't home that night. At least, I thought he wasn't. Around this time, I realized something pretty disturbing. I had never actually seen Miles leave for work. Every day when I woke up, he was gone, but I never saw him physically walk out the door. I decided to stay awake one night, lights off, pretending to sleep. At around 1:30 a.m., I heard something that made every hair on my body stand up. The sound of a door, opening from inside the walls. A soft click, then a sliding noise, like wood scraping against wood. Followed by slow footsteps coming from inside the house, but not from the front or back door. I heard them go down the hall. Toward my room. I texted my best friend, "Call me in 10 minutes. Emergency." I stayed frozen in my bed. The doorknob twitched. Just slightly. Like someone was testing if I had locked it. Then the footsteps walked away. In the morning, I went downstairs and Miles was eating cereal like nothing happened. I asked him, casually, if he got home early last night. He didn't blink. He said, "No." "Why?" And then he smiled. Too wide. That's when I started planning my exit. For 3 days, I packed little things into my backpack, chargers, clothes, documents. Slowly. Quietly. I didn't want him noticing. On the 4th day, something happened that confirmed everything. I accidentally knocked over a framed photo in the hallway. When I picked it up, the back panel fell off. Inside the frame wasn't a picture. It was a small black lens. A camera. Hidden in a fake photograph. My stomach dropped. I backed up and noticed something even worse. 2 other frames in the hallway were pointed directly at my bedroom door. I didn't sleep at all that night. I kept imagining the footsteps, the tapping behind the mirror, the feeling of being watched. And then, at around 3 a.m., I heard the hidden door again. Click, slide, footsteps, except this time, the steps didn't stop at my door, they came into my room. I had forgotten to lock it. I lay perfectly still, pretending to be asleep. My heart was hammering so hard I thought he'd hear it. Someone, Miles, stood beside my bed. Breathing softly. Deeply. Like he was smelling the air around me. Then I heard a whisper, not to me. To himself. "Yeah, she's perfect." Every cell in my body went cold. He stood there for what felt like an hour but was probably a minute. Then he walked out. And I heard the hidden door close again. The moment the house went silent, I grabbed my bag, opened the window, and climbed out. I didn't care about the height. I didn't care about anything except getting out alive. I ran 3 blocks barefoot before calling my friend to pick me up. When I finally worked up the courage to tell the police the next day, we went back to the house. Miles was gone. But inside, behind a bookshelf, they found a narrow crawlspace with a mattress, food containers, and a small monitor connected to multiple hidden cameras. He had been living inside the walls. Watching me. Listening to me sleep. Entering my room while I was unconscious. They never found him, not a trace. And last week, 4 years later, I got an email. No subject line. No message, just an attachment. A picture of me. Sleeping. In my new apartment. I don't know how he found me. I don't know how long he's been watching. But I sleep with the lights on now, and every night, I swear I hear tapping, behind the mirror. I want to stay anonymous for this one. Not because I'm scared the guy will find me again, I'm scared that he already has. I moved 4 times since this happened, changed jobs twice, even deleted all my old social media. But sometimes at night, when I'm lying in bed, I get this feeling, like someone is standing outside my door, listening, the same way he used to. Back in 2021, I had just moved into my first apartment alone. It wasn't great, thin walls, old carpet, and that constant smell of cigarettes no matter how many air fresheners I used. But it was cheap, and it was mine. That alone felt like freedom. Across the hall lived a man named Evan. Early 40s, quiet, barely spoke. The type of neighbor who nods politely but never smiles. I liked that. I wasn't looking for friends, just privacy. The first time something felt off was about 3 weeks after I moved in. It was around 2 a.m. when I heard footsteps in the hallway. Heavy ones. At first I ignored them, apartment buildings are noisy. But after a minute or two, I realized the footsteps weren't moving. They were pacing, back and forth, directly in front of my door. I thought maybe someone was drunk or lost, but when I looked through the peephole, no one was there. Just an empty hallway. But I swear I could still hear the footsteps. That was the first night I slept with the light on. A few days later, when I got home from work, there was a note slipped under my door.no envelope.no name, just a folded piece of paper with handwriting that looked shaky, uneven. It said, "You walk too quietly. I almost didn't hear you come home." I stared at that note for a long time. It wasn't threatening, just unsettling. Like someone was paying way too much attention to me. I showed my landlord, but he just shrugged and said to ignore it. "People here are weird," he told me. Great advice, right? I tried to brush it off until a week later when a second note showed up. This one said, "You dropped your keys yesterday." I hadn't, and my keys were always clipped to my bag. Whoever wrote that note was watching close enough to think they saw something that never happened. I started noticing other things too. Whenever I opened my door, Evan's door across the hall would click softly. Like he was unlocking it just enough to peek out. Sometimes I'd hear breathing from behind it. Not loud, but close. Close enough that I could picture him standing there with one eye against the crack. One night, I decided to test it that I opened my door suddenly, without making any noise, and I swear on my life, I saw his door close. Fast. Like he had been standing inches away from it. I told myself I was imagining things. Paranoia from living alone for the first time. But then came the third note. I found it on my kitchen counter, inside my locked apartment. That it said, "You talk in your sleep. I like hearing what you dream about." I dropped the note immediately. My apartment was small, one entrance, one set of windows. There was no way someone got in without me noticing. Unless. I remembered the maintenance guy mentioning an old building-wide vent system that connected some of the apartments. They weren't used anymore, but they hadn't been fully sealed off either. That night I pushed my bed away from the wall and checked behind it. There was a vent, the screws were loose, and on the inside of the metal frame, there were fingerprints. I couldn't stay there another night. I packed a bag and went to a friend's place. The next morning, I brought the notes to the building manager and demanded he check the vent system immediately. When he opened the vent in my bedroom, something fell out. A phone, not mine, a cheap, cracked Android with the screen smashed in. When he managed to power it on, the wallpaper made my stomach drop. It was a picture of me, sleeping, taken from the exact angle of the vent. The manager called the police, and they went straight to Evan's apartment. But here's the part that still keeps me up at night. The apartment was empty, completely empty. No furniture, no clothes, no food, not even dust. It looked like no one had lived there in years. But the lease paperwork said otherwise. Evan had moved in a month before me. Paid in cash. No ID on file. And the only thing they found in that entire apartment was a sleeping bag, positioned directly across from the vent connecting to my room. They never found him, not in the building, not in the city. That he disappeared like he'd never existed. But 3 months after I moved out, I got a voicemail from an unknown number. It was only 5 seconds long, just breathing, slow, deliberate breathing. And at the very end, a whisper, so faint I barely caught it. "You still walk quietly." I deleted the message, but the voice still loops in my head sometimes. Especially at night, right before I fall asleep, when the apartment gets quiet, and I swear I hear breathing coming from inside the walls. I've never told anyone this story before. Not because I'm scared people won't believe me, but because I'm scared someone will. What happened to me wasn't supernatural. It wasn't a ghost or a demon or anything like that. It was a person. A real person, and sometimes that's 1,000 times worse. Back in 2022, I worked night shifts at a small electronics repair shop. The job wasn't complicated: fix cracked screens, replace batteries, occasionally clean out someone's dusty charging port. The only problem was the hours. I'd usually get home around 3 a.m., exhausted, and crash into bed with my phone still in my hand. One night, after a long shift, I was scrolling through my gallery looking for a picture I took earlier that day. I was half asleep, barely paying attention, until I noticed something strange. There were 6 new photos in my gallery, all taken around 1:40 a.m., during the time I was at work. I opened the first picture and froze. It was a photo of my bedroom, taken from the doorway, lights off, just a faint streetlight glow coming through the curtains. I didn't take that picture. My heart started pounding as I opened the second one. This time the angle was different, lower, almost like someone had crouched near my desk. The photo was grainy but clear enough to recognize my room instantly. My bed. My backpack on the floor. Even the hoodie I left hanging on my chair. The third picture, that one almost made me drop the phone. It was taken right beside my bed, so close that the corner of my pillow was in frame. Someone had been standing inches from where I sleep. My first thought was that my phone must have been hacked. Maybe some kind of malware, some creepy stalker software. But the photos weren't screenshots, they were taken with my actual camera. Which meant someone physically held my phone, inside my apartment. I lived alone, that I always locked my door, and nothing looked disturbed. But as I kept scrolling, the pictures got worse. The fourth image was a close-up of my nightstand, my phone charger, my glasses, my keys. The keys bothered me most. Because in the picture, they weren't on the nightstand the way I remembered leaving them. They were placed neatly. Lined up perfectly. Someone had touched them. The fifth picture was taken from inside my closet. I didn't even know my phone could capture that angle. It was a narrow shot, squeezed between my jackets, aimed directly at the sliver of my room visible through the small space between the doors. Someone had been hiding in there. The final photo was the worst. It was me, asleep, taken so close. The camera had focused on the details of my face, my eyelashes, the way my hair had fallen across my forehead, the faint reflection of light on my lips. That I don't think I've ever felt that kind of fear before. The kind that makes your whole body freeze. My phone had been right beside my pillow while I slept. Someone took it, took photos of me, and put it back, without waking me up. I didn't sleep at all that night. I kept every light on and sat in a corner with a kitchen knife, staring at the closet door like something was going to crawl out of it. The next morning, I went straight to the building manager. I demanded he check the security footage from the hallway. He looked annoyed, but when I told him someone had gotten into my apartment, he finally agreed. We checked the footage together. From 11 p.m. to 3 a.m., nothing. No one entering or leaving my unit. No one even walking near my door. But at 1:37 a.m., the exact time the pictures were taken, there was a glitch in the camera feed. 3 seconds of static. Then it went back to normal. I asked if that happened often, that he said never. That was enough for me. I didn't care about money or the lease. I packed all my things in 2 hours and left the same day. I thought it was over. I hoped it was over. For about 6 months, I didn't notice anything strange. No missing items. No weird noises. No signs of a break-in. Until one night, when I was deleting old pictures to clear storage, I saw something that made every fear rush back instantly. A new folder, hidden deep in my gallery, named Recents 2. Inside were 3 photos, all taken last week. The first picture was the outside of my new building, the second was my apartment door. And the third was me again, sleeping in my new room, taken from the same angle as before. Except this time, whoever took it was close enough that I could see their reflection in my open eye. My eye wasn't fully closed in the picture. There's a tiny reflection on the surface. A human face, smiling. I don't know who it is. I don't know how they keep finding me, and I don't know how they keep getting into every place I live. But tonight, before I started recording this, I got a notification on my phone. New photos added to your gallery. And I'm too scared to open it.